and here we have the poker. Is it an ace or is it a joker? We're going to explore that in this upcoming review of this very hotly anticipated 60% small mini keyboard from Vortex, living up to the poker legendary name of the pok3r and the pok3r, which kind of exploded the 60% scene, the mini size of the keyboards here. Now, if you haven't seen my unboxing yet, I recommend you do so. I will put a link to it down in the description so you can watch it, and go watch that now if you haven't before you see this. Now, the pok3r. The pok3r in its own right is an amazing value for everything they fit into this keyboard at the $129.99 price point that I paid. Now, granted, as of the time of this is now May 26th, 2015. So prices, of course, do change. Bear that in mind. And I also got mine with the MX Clear switch type, of which those switches do sell out fast, and they are rare, so price can fluctuate quite a bit. But by stock, this keyboard has quite a bit that a lot of people pay a lot extra to have added or changed on their keyboard later on, which at this price point is quite impressive. For starters, you've got these nice thick Vortex PBT caps, which are much thicker than ABS and are also shine resistant, so they will last a very long time. One note, and a member of the Reddit community pointed this out to me, is that these keycaps are actually laser printed, so the printing on them will eventually wear off, so do bear that in mind. It's an unfortunate downside that they went through the trouble of putting PBT caps on but not using double shot PBT keycaps. But considering the price point, I do guess I understand. It's just that down the lines you'll probably have to swap out the caps, which, considering all these small little printing they have on the front side of the cap for the different programmable options, could be quite unfortunate trying to figure out what cap does what unless you really memorize it down the line. Also, at this stock price point, which is very impressive, it has a stock aluminum case. This thing is absolutely beefcake. I mean, this thing is just, it's heavy, it's bulky, it's durable. I don't have a scale with me, forgive me, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's around 2 pounds, the whole enclosure. So you could probably hit somebody over the head with this. No, I'm not encouraging that. And it would survive just fine. It's absolutely amazing how durable and well built this thing is at the price point. I mean, typically you could find keyboards like this from other manufacturers at $100 and $110, and they have a cheap plastic casing and ABS keycaps at that. So the amount of things that Vortex managed to fit in at this price point is nothing short of miraculous. So that's just awesome. But again, I just wish next time, maybe on the pok3r, or maybe when you do a backlit variant in the future, I'd really think about doing the double shots instead of the lasered keycaps, just because it's going to be a real shame when I have to replace these and I'm not going to remember what all these programmable layers do without having that marking on the keycap. Yeah, I can touch type, all the letters and numbers and everything else with ease, but not remembering all this small stuff right here, that's really going to stink when I have to change these keycaps out. So that's unfortunate. Aside from that, the MX Clear switch variant, which I ordered with this, if you're not familiar with it, is a tactile response key switch with no click. It is a pretty silent switch, but it has a lot more actuation pressure required than most other keys. It's higher than MX Blue, not as high as MX Green. It's kind of right in between the two. I ended up settling on these because the noise from my Blues was driving my wife nuts, and these also provide a very satisfying amount of feedback. I'm going to put the mic up to the keyboard now so you can actually hear what they sound like, and I'm going to push down on them fairly hard and intentionally bottom out so you can see the loudest that this really gets is still very silent compared to a lot of other keyboards. So as you can see, even with me intentionally bottom out, intentionally pretty much slamming down on the keys, the keyboard still is not that loud. So if you like a good tactile feedback and you also like, that really kind of a slightly stiffer switch, but you don't like the noise that the blues or the greens give off, the MX Clear is an excellent option. And not a whole lot of keyboards still offer this switch, and when you can find it, it's sold out. So this is definitely worth your look, even if you're an MX Clear fan and you're considering your first 60% board, to have all these quality features and quality, build at this price point and have MX Clears as an option is a real plus, because I'm a big fan of this key switch. This is actually my full first keyboard that had clear switches on it, and every keyboard I buy henceforth will probably have the MX Clear switch instead of a blue or a green on it. So besides that, what else is there to say about the pok3r, really? Well, it has multiple layers of programmability, as you can see here. You've got layer 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you can change around what some of the key functions do. And you also have, if you hold down your function key, if you're not familiar with a 60% keyboard, you can still access your F1 through F12 keys. You've got, arrow keys, so you can access those as well with a hold down of the function key. One other disappointment that they didn't have in this is they did not have dedicated volume keys. And that's a big hit for me personally, because I love being able to access those on the keyboard very quickly. They said they're going to add it in a future firmware, but the problem is that there is no existing lettering on the keys here. And so even if they add it, then at that point, whatever keys that they assign it to, or if you can rearrange it yourself, you're just going to have to remember from memory instead of actually looking at the key. So that's kind of a shame that they didn't include that from the onset. I'm not sure why, because I'm fairly certain that the pok3r 2 had that. I never actually owned a pok3r 2. But I'm fairly certain that it did have that feature from the get-go, so I'm not sure why they chose to omit this. If you are looking for the backlit model, that will be coming in the future from what I understand, but for the moment it is unavailable. This keyboard also does offer, for those of you that prefer the other modes, works fully with Colemak and, God, I can never remember the other one. Colemak and Dvorak, excuse me. So it works with both of those as well if you do like those formats. I truthfully have never actually tried typing with Colemak and Dvorak. One of these days I might, just to see what the actual difference is and if it stunts my typing or it improves it. I'm not an expert typist by any means. I'm usually between 90 and 100 words per minute, so a little bit above average, but definitely not professional level by any stretch. I'm sure a lot of you listening to this probably can type much faster than that. So overall, the keyboard in itself, this is my first 60% keyboard. I've always been a TKL or a 10 keyless fan, but I am very happy with this keyboard. Very pleasantly surprised. Just the build quality on this thing, I can't stress it enough, is amazing for the price point. It really is. I mean, to have a full aluminum casing like that, the case alone could sell for a good 60 to 80 bucks. And then to have the MX Clear switch, PBT caps, and all the programmability options that this has is truly nothing short of amazing. So if you're in the market for a 60% keyboard, I definitely recommend this. I would give it a 9 out of 10, stunting it only for the fact that it doesn't have the dedicated volume controls, the fact that they use the laser printing method instead of double shot, so it will eventually wear off, so that's a little bit of a shame. So those are the two big things I would ding it for and bring it down to a 9 instead of a 10. But other than that, this is really kind of a flawless keyboard. You can't ask for much more than this. The only other thing I will note to people, and I'm pretty sure that this is pretty common with 60% boards anyways, but for those of you that are used to raised feet on a keyboard, this does not have them. It is just rubber bottoms, as you can see here, and then your dip switches if you want to change to right here. If you want to change to Colemak or Dvorak or whatever, that's where you would change those switches to do so. So if you're used to that raised feet, then bear in mind they are not available here. I think that's pretty standard for 60% boards, but as I said, this is my first one. But I find it incredibly comfortable to type on. I would recommend a wrist rest if you don't already have one. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say about the pok3r. In my unboxing, I did uncover that the only other two things, again, that I wish it did come with, but for the price point, I understand why not, considering the other stuff they fit in here, was it did not come with a USB to PS2 adapter, and the USB cable that it came with is just kind of a typical rubberized USB cable. Whereas by contrast, even my much cheaper Cooler Master board came with a much more heavy-duty braided cable, so that was a little bit disappointing. But again, considering the other stuff they fit in this keyboard at this price point, hardly a deal breaker by any stretch. So Vortex, if you happen to be watching this, I think you have a real winner on your hands here. There's a reason that a lot of people refer to the 60% boards as pokers, even if they're not an actual poker, just because that name is synonymous with the 60% board at this point. That's what people know it as, because it's simply that great of a board. If you are even remotely considering a 60% board, get this board now. A lot of the switch types are already selling out, so they're coming hard to come by. So if you want one, don't hesitate, get them now. I got mine through mechanicalkeyboards.com. I highly recommend them. Had a lot of good experiences with them. No, I'm not getting any money for saying that. They are absolutely great if you need support, so I'd recommend going through them if you're going to order one. So Vortex, you definitely have a big winner on your hands here. Again, minus the few things I'd suggest for the pok3r that I mentioned earlier. Other than that, that's about all there is to say about the poker. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on rambling here. This keyboard has now actually taken over as my daily driver. It has replaced my Quickfire Rapid with MX Blues and PBT caps, and this is now going to be my primary board. So that alone, I think, is a compliment in itself. I absolutely love this keyboard. There's nothing else I can say about it, or I'm going to keep rambling for another 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, rate, and subscribe. As always, never game sober. Have a good one, everybody.